the world that we live in now with COVID has impacted how we normally do things, and this is our first real in-person event that has meal service. And so first, I'd like to thank Jeremy Gardner at Fridays for allowing us to rent the restaurant and go ahead and do this. So if you would give him a round of applause. Thank you, Jeremy. So, this event gives the Chamber an opportunity to celebrate the accomplishments of minority entrepreneurs within our community, as well as individuals and organizations committed to advancing minority business enterprise. As I said, many things are different this year, but the one thing that will remain the same is that we honor people in our community who have accomplished big things. We certainly could not do things like this without our sponsors, so I want to take a minute and recognize them. And if you will, just sort of someone from the company, raise your hand or stand up, and we'll hold our applause until we get through all of them. But our presenting sponsors are Northwestern Mutual, Conway Corporation, and Conway Regional Health System. Our award sponsors are Sam's Club and First Community Bank. Speaker sponsors are Hendrix College and Sandstone Real Estate Group. And our advocate sponsors are Axiom, Nabholz, Simmons Bank, Candlewood Suites, Country Inn and Suites. So let's give them a round of applause, please. And now I'd like to welcome Drew Gaynor of Northwestern Mutual to the podium.
Hello, everyone. Oh, sorry about that. Welcome to MED. It's definitely a different year this year. We're proud that we have been the presenting sponsor for this event for many years now, and we've been proud to do our part in doing our best to serve the community that we live in, right? And the D&I space is very important to us. It has been. I'm blessed to be the leader of our organization, and also blessed that I come from Honduras, right? And I'm blessed to be able to have a team that is diverse, a team that represents our community and mirrors what our community looks like. Excuse me. This year we're proud to co-sponsor with Conway Corp and Conway Regional, so thank you very much to those two organizations and their leadership team. It's a great opportunity for us to honor the recipients tonight. This has always been one of my favorite events that the Chamber puts on. So thank you to the Chamber. Thank you for your leadership, Brad, Lindsay, Jamie, and everyone on the team. You guys do a phenomenal job. It's first class every time. So big round of applause to that team, if you don't mind, please. In addition, I want to recognize several recipients from previous years that are here with us tonight. Some here and some not. Country Inn and Suites. Hold your applause till the end, if you don't mind. Country Inn and Suites, Sandstone Real Estate Group, Osmar Garcia, Crystal Floyd, Allstate Insurance, Chris Hervey Agency, Ronnie Williams, and Angela Webster. So if you join me in a round of applause in honoring our past recipients. So I look forward to tonight's program, and now please help me welcome Marcus Elliott of Conway Regional. Marcus.
Thank you, Drew. At Conway Regional, we take pride in serving and supporting our neighbors in our communities in Central Arkansas, the North Central Arkansas, and then the River Valley. For nearly 100 years, Conway Regional has served these areas. The mission at Conway Regional is providing high quality and compassionate care for our patients. This is our mission at Conway Regional. We know our community businesses have a mission to grow. Not just a mission to grow, but also a mission to serve and to evolve and to adapt. This last 6 months, there's nothing that's more obvious, and that's important, that we help in our communities and our community businesses adapt, evolve, and serve. Based on what I see this evening, there's no doubt our community, businesses in Conway are strong. They're healthy and thriving. And I'm confident in the success that's going to result going forward. That success comes not only from your talents and from your services, but the quality of work that you share and the care that you share with your customers and your neighbors. Thank you for allowing us to participate in this event. It's important to us. This event is probably more important than ever. And the Bible talks about in Romans, you're more than conquerors. It's more important now that we come together and show our communities and our people and the businesses in our communities, we support you, we believe in you, and that we are staying with you. With that, we salute the honorees tonight and all you've accomplished, and we stand with you in Conway Regional. With that, I'd like to take this minute to welcome Meryl Soriano and Lori Melton to the podium tonight.
Good evening. I'm proud to represent Sam's Club this evening and take part of tonight's celebration. In recognition of their professional success and selfless service, we are happy to celebrate with the friends, families, and colleagues of tonight's honorees. A panel of chamber professionals from surrounding areas and states selected the following as this year's award winners. Minority Business of the Year, Northwestern Mutual. Outstanding Young Minority Professional, Trip Leach, Vice President and CFO of S7 Tactical. Minority Executive of the Year, Mita Sitaram, owner of Common of Conway. Lifetime Achievement Award, Tim and Gina Ester. Lori, please help us get to know our honorees a little better.
Thank you, Meryl. At First Community Bank, we have a slogan where the community comes first, and we really do mean that, and we exude that by recognizing the community is everyone. And for an example is we have Edward Mion. Edward, stand up and give a wave. Edward is our Spanish-speaking employee that people flock to. He's a great employee. Everyone loves Edward. We also have access to a language line, so if you speak more than 20 languages, you can still bank with First Community Bank. So let's talk about the winners. Let's look at our first Minority Business of the Year category. This award is presented to the business whose practices have had a significant impact on the community. Since opening their doors in 2015, the staff of Northwestern Mutual has grown from a small group of 5 to a team of 45, including 25 full employees and 20 interns. What lucky interns they are. Led by Managing Director Drew Gaynor, the team takes pride in community involvement and service, supporting organizations such as Children's Advocacy Alliance and Deliver Hope, among many others. As Deliver Hope Chairman of the Board, thank you. Always striving to provide the best service to their clients, Northwestern Mutual is this year's Minority Business of the Year. Please join me in congratulating them. Drew, you're not getting away without saying a few words. More.
Más. Man. This is special to me. As I'm not supposed to be here in front of you. I'm not. My team, the majority of them, we don't come from privilege. And in the world that we live in today, this is really special. And I really, really appreciate this. Brad, team, thank you. Whoever nominated us, thank you so much. my team and I are honored that we are being awarded this tonight. So it's very special. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Next, we look at our Outstanding Young Minority Professional. This award is presented to an individual under the age of 40 who has committed themselves to business and community service. From co-founding a successful business to serving on the school board for Conway Public Schools, and I can guarantee you that is a big deal. And he probably gets paid, nothing for that, and he has a lot of phone calls, I can guarantee you. He also leads his church family ministry. Trip Leach personifies the definition of this award. He said to have a servant's heart and a work ethic that is second to none. And he is this year's Outstanding Young Minority Professional. Trip, come on up. His company is S7 Tactical.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, I don't know what to do with my hands here. I'm going to set that down. I just wanted to say thank you so much. It's such an honor. One of the things I've realized in the short time I have been a professional in a career is that very rarely does someone get success by himself, him or herself. There's usually a team, it's a collaboration, or even leaders that go before us that give and set the table for success. And there's a few of them, well, there's many actually that I would like to acknowledge tonight, but I'm only going to acknowledge a few that are actually in this room, if you bear with me. So the first one I want to say is I want to thank my personal Savior, Jesus Christ. I believe a very different man would be standing before you today without his grace and mercy. And plus, he teaches me every day how to be more of a servant leader, someone that puts someone's interests above your own, and how to love someone despite our differences. And who knows, we need more of that. But somebody that you recognize over here is Tim Ester and Gina Ester. Give them a quick hand. So I had no idea we were going to share the stage tonight until, of course, I saw the awards come out. Tim was my boss back when I was at Stobie's, and he was such an amazing man. And I don't know what he saw in me, but apparently he saw something to hire me. I started as a line cook, then graduated up to a manager. And he must have thought I was smart because I graduated from Hendrix, or went to Hendrix like his beautiful, talented wife. Sorry I let you down on that one, Tim. But you know what I never thanked you for, Tim? And that's for hiring my beautiful now wife, Courtney Shear. Yeah, that's where I met my wife, was at Stobie's. And I definitely wanted to thank her. Courtney, I don't know if I can't see you behind the pillar. But she's back there, I assure you. She's been so supportive of me on all my crazy ideas. You know, I wanted to start a gun range, and she doesn't like to shoot guns, but she supported me. Now, and one special lady I also want to recognize is my mom. Mom, can you just wave to everybody? I don't know if you can see her. She's the cute Korean lady in the back. My mom immigrated here 40 years ago, approximately. Barely spoke English. And the one thing that I remember most about my mom is how tirelessly she worked for me. There was a little plant, Levi Strauss in Walton, where she hemmed jeans for a very modest income. And I remember her just never complaining, loving me, so I could be the kid with the cool shoes. You know, y'all remember the Reebok pumps? Brad Lacey knows what I'm talking about. Back in the day, those were the cool shoes. Mom, you paid way too much for those shoes. But I do want to say this. Mom, thank you for being the mom that every kid wishes they had. I wouldn't be here without you, and I love you so much. And last but not least, I want to acknowledge my business partner and his wife here today. Our business would not be what it is without him and his wife. They're both very servant-hearted as well. Ryan has served our country, two-tour combat Marine, and he's also served in law enforcement, trained law officers, and he's such a humble and wonderful dude. Also, some of our dearest friends. I'm sorry I'm so long-winded. I got so many people I want to thank, but the last people I want to thank is Brad Lacey and his team. I believe Chamber of Commerce is a great organization, and it's one of the reasons why Conway is such a wonderful place to live and work and raise a family. So, Brad, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Okay, that made me want to go shoot my gun. And yes, I have one. I know that's a shocker to most. All right, let's talk about the Minority Business Executive of the Year Award. It's presented to the owner, executive, or leader of a business who has displayed outstanding performance in either an individual or collaborative endeavor. In a year that has no doubt been particularly challenging to students, teachers, parents, the services offered by Kumon of Conway are especially appreciated. Mita Sitaram is the proud owner of Kumon of Conway, a franchise of the world's largest after-school math and reading program. Where was this 15 years ago is what I need to say, when my son was struggling. Please, he could still probably use some help, and I think I could too. Edward can probably say that. They don't let me touch the money at the bank. Okay, providing individualized guidance and instruction to each of our clients, Mita is celebrated as this year's Minority Business Executive of the Year. Please join me in recognizing her. Where is she? There you are. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be selected Minority Executive of the Year. I began my Kumon journey 8 years ago when my son went to a center, and last year I explored the Conway community and found many exciting extracurricular activities offered, but nothing that really reached out to academics, nothing that involved academics. And so with I saw how Kumon impacted my kids and wanted to bring that to Conway so that way children and parents have a resource here for education. We all practice different things. We have training in our jobs, we have training for sports and all these different things, but there's really nothing that really helps children with academics. And so I am here for that. We start at age 3 and go to high school. We help children that want enrichment, and we also help children that feel like they're left out or that left behind in school. We are able to help influence students who want more challenges but also are overlooked. Being selected Minority Executive of the Year means I can continue my mission to create stronger foundations in this community and develop well-rounded students who can continue to bring pride to this Conway community that's ever so overgrowing, it seems. Thank you.
That is so awesome. Okay, now we'll move on to the Lifetime Achievement Award. It celebrates high standards of excellence, dedication, and accomplishment over a sustained period of time. The award is granted to an individual who has played an integral role in the creative, technical, or professional progress of minority business development over the course of his or her life. This year we get to do a special couple. We get to give it to a couple, Tim and Gina Ester. And as you've already heard, they are a special dynamic duo. If you haven't, I've had the pleasure of working with Gina off and on in my career. We raised a child together. We shared daycare and preschool together. And how many cheese dips have we all ate that Tim had something to do with? So they have managed 2 successful businesses over the past 30 years, and I believe he's still making some good catfish and barbecue that if you just go down the road real quick, you can find them. In what spare time they have, they continue to serve the community through their philanthropic efforts. 12 years ago, they founded the Pine Street Backpack Program to better equip school-age children. The program has raised over $250,000 and served more than 10,000 students. Organizations such as the United Way of Central Arkansas, Boys and Girls Club of Faulkner County, and the Conway Area Chamber of Commerce have benefited from their generous spirits, and we congratulate them tonight. Please join me in congratulating Tim and Gina Ester. Gina, are you going to talk or are you going to let Tim? Okay, go for it, absolutely.
Good evening, everyone, and we certainly are honored. I mean, this is it's kind of overwhelming, and I'm never at a loss for words if you know me, but this is one time that I am. But I was trying to figure out a little bit about the award. It came as a surprise to us. Like one of the other nominees said, we don't know where the nomination came from. But I began to research, go out to the chamber website and see who in the world other than us have received this Lifetime Achievement Award. And we saw names like Ronnie Williams, and I was like, oh Lord, we're coming in the line. People such as he, who has been a mentor to my husband. But when you see those who have come before us, who have received those types of awards, it's really humbling. And it wasn't until I got back there and I started reading this booklet that told about our accomplishments, I guess I had to say wow myself. I mean, we just work. We're everyday, very humble people. God put us on this earth for a purpose, and we're trying to live that out, and we don't expect anything for it. You know, that's not our expectations. You know, we're trying to rear our children up to do the same thing that we are, is to give. You know, it's two types of givers. It's donors and it's doers, and we're not donors because we're not rich. So we're doers, and we've raised our children. My son, who is here with us tonight, he's, you know, I hope that we have taught him well as my daughter, who is not here. She's out of the country. But the very fact that they gave this to a couple for the first time versus an individual lets me know that we are a good team. We've been together for 35 years and married 32 years. And I've got to say this. Thank you. It's not been easy. Okay. But I do want to say this about this gentleman that I'm standing here next to. He was the one who taught me about giving. Because if you know my husband, it's his nature. It's just his nature to give, and he'll give his last. And I've always been the one. I'm an accountant. I went to Hendricks. I pinch pennies. So if it doesn't make sense, you know, I can't, you know, if it doesn't add up. And so I had to learn the way God gives, it by his economy. You know, don't look at that. You know, you cast your bread upon the waters, and in many days it'll return. You know, pressed down and shaken together. And that's how our life has been. We have been running over with blessings, just being able to give. And so I thank him for teaching me how it's just by nature. My spiritual counselor, who is not here, Cornell Malvia, for teaching me the biblical principles. And I thank the chamber and whomever nominated us for thinking about us. Is, again, very humbling and a great honor. Thank you.
All right, so with my 30 seconds left, I certainly want to thank everyone, and my wife is definitely the communicator in the family. But anyway, I certainly want to thank Brad, you guys in the chamber. I see my friend, my Menifean, as I want to say, Mr. Williams, tell you a little bit about him. Mr. Williams' dad used to cut my hair when I was a little bitty boy. And, you know, Ronnie, nowadays, they don't cut hair quite like they do. When they cut, they put a lot of gray in it for some reason. You know, I don't know how that worked, but anyway. Also, Courtney and Trip Leach. God, do I remember those days. But we certainly appreciate you. I'll tell you this story right quick, and I know we don't have long. I got 10 seconds left. But I don't know if Trip even know this, but Courtney and I had a meeting in the office one day, and she come up and she say, hey, what about Trip? And I say, what about Trip? She say, I think I kind of like him. I said, well, I'll tell you about Trip. Trip is a super, super, super guy. You can't go wrong with Trip. So anyway, so I want to say that Trip, both of us really outkicked our coverage in marriage. So yeah, great wife. And the last thing I'd like to say, Marcus, I really miss you today on drive time, man. That's where we need to be. But there is a pretty good football team locally here called the Bears, okay? So we can't follow. But guys, thank you very much. Like my wife say, you know, it is unbelievable, you know, how when you give, how you get it back and everything like that. And I want to continue to give. Conway is a great, great, great community, and we're going to keep it that way. Thank you guys very much.
All right, we're going to take a little bit of a break and let everyone get meal service. But one thing I did want to ask is raise your hand if you have filled out the Future of Conway survey. Okay, that means a lot of you have not done it. And for those of you that have not, do you have a mobile device tonight? If you do, will you pull it out and show me? Come on, pull it up, show me. All right. On your table, here is the address of the survey. If you don't know what the survey is, 10 years ago, we embarked on a pretty aggressive visioning process called Conway 2025 that was based off of public input. We had 1,400 people that participated in the survey portion of that, and it is responsible for a lot of the great things that you've seen happen in the last decade. We're at that 10-year mark, so it's time to ask people again what's important to you. And this survey is the tool that we will use to decide what the city is going to look and feel like over the next decade. So we need you to fill that out tonight. There's no excuse. It only takes about a minute or two. So if you get on your phone and fill that out real quick, we would appreciate it. We have almost 1,800 surveys completed so far, so substantially more than last time, but we'd really like to have 2,000. So you guys can help us get there. We'll be back up to visit with Ronnie Williams in about 10 or 15 minutes, so enjoy your meal.
Let's have one more round of applause for all the honorees tonight. Well, it's an honor for me to share the stage with such humble and honorable people. We are truly fortunate to live in a community that is thriving with not only outstanding businesses, but dedicated and community-minded citizens. I'm Brett Carroll, CEO of Conway Corporation, and we're proud to sponsor the Minority and Enterprise Development Awards and help highlight stories such as those that we've heard tonight. Continuing with that thought, we're happy to have someone with us tonight that is a pillar of our community, a supporter of the underdog, and a friend to me, and just a genuine prince of a human being. To help get us started with the guest speaker portion of this program, please help me welcome Corey Garrett of Sandstone Real Estate Group.
I got Jack Daniels juice all over my paper. That was some good chicken. Thank you, Brent. I would also like to thank our co-sponsors for the evening, Hendrix College and Sandstone Real Estate Group, who has been proud to sponsor this year's event. I would also like to recognize the Hendrix students and the future business leaders. If y'all would just wave your hands at us. Glad to have you. As guest speaker, we welcome Mr. Ronnie Williams. Mr. Ronnie Williams received a BA from Hendrix College, an MSc from Arkansas State University, and has completed the course requirements for a doctorate in higher education administration from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. During his 30-plus years at UCA, he has served as Assistant Dean of Students, Director of the Office of Minority Affairs, Assistant to the former President Winfred Thompson, and he currently serves as Vice President for Student Services and Institutional Diversity. Mr. Williams has been a student advocate, a leader in diversity, and a change maker. He has received several awards honoring him for his commitments to UCA and community engagement. He is also the past recipient of the Minority Enterprise Development Lifetime Achievement Award. For what I'm sure is going to be a touching interview, please help me welcome Mr. Ronnie Williams and Brad Mason.
Well, as we started to think about who we wanted to speak this year, and we think about where we are as a country, it became pretty apparent to all of us, because we know Ronnie's story, and many of you may not know Ronnie's story. But there have been things in Conway that have occurred over the years that are not great. And I think it's important as we move forward as a community that the whole story, we tell the whole story, not just the good parts. You know, for me personally, there is no person that I respect more than this man. He invested in me as a student at UCA 30 years ago. And I was telling him as we were sitting there, of all the adults that I knew when I was in school, he's the sole survivor who's hung with me all these years. And so I will never forget that. And he has meant that same thing to so many of us who have come here. So tonight we're just going to have a conversation. And I think it's going to be very compelling and touching and hard at times to hear some things, but we want to be honest and forthright about what life was like. And so we're going to go back to 1960. Ronnie was 7 years old, and I thought to kind of set the stage, I wanted him to share a little bit about Conway 1960, especially Markham Street, which you know is undergoing a real transformation right now. But what you might not know is that was the traditional black business district of Conway. And so I wanted Ronnie to start by sharing a little bit about what Markham Street was like in 1960.
Thanks, Brad. Good evening, everybody. Let me just say this before I start to talk about that. I just want you guys to know that my feelings toward Brad Lacey are mutual. I said it many, many times when I met Brad as a student. Of course, Brad was president of his fraternity, president of the student body, and we knew that he was going to be a leader. And I'm just thankful that he chose Conway as that place to showcase his leadership skills. And we know that Conway is a better place because of Brad Lacey and his team. They have transformed Conway into a progressive place, an inclusive place. And so I'm thankful for him and our friendship. And I'm just thankful to be a part of this community as well. Been here for a long time. But anyway, Markham Street, for those of you that grew up in the Conway area, Markham Street was the economic and social hub for black people at that time. There were a number of businesses on Markham Street. There was the Sunset Cafe, and across the street was the Deluxe Diner, or at one time it was called the Drag. Next to it was the Cleaners, Mr. Bland's Cleaners, and behind Mr. Bland's Cleaners there were some apartments, and then of course north of that was Woodson's grocery store. So if you were black and you wanted to socialize, you wanted to be and be seen, that was Markham Street was it. And so in terms of Conway as well, am I getting ahead of myself? I don't know. Okay, so Conway was, as you might expect, it was segregated in 1960. I grew up in the Menifee area, so just 6 miles west of Conway. And our school at the time was, in 1960, was called Conway County Training School. It was an all-black high school. Believe it or not, Menifee was a little bit of an economic hub as well. It had a huge concentration of black families at that time. And I did a little research on that area. Menifee was considered a site for the state capitol, believe it or not. But it was, at that time, it was a thriving community. And of course, all of us that were in that community did all of our business in Conway and Morrilton. But Markham Street was that place for us to socialize.
One story that you shared with me, and we'll leave the store name to the book, because there is a book coming out, so we're going to give you little pieces of this. But I think just to help crystallize for people what life was like for you, talk a little bit about the man you worked for and the suit that you wanted to get, and then what happened when you went back to get another suit.
Thanks, Brad. So let me tell you, most black families growing up in the 50s and 60s, we worked the fields. We worked the cotton fields. So we were able to advance to a point where we were no longer in the cotton fields. I was working for Mars Furniture Store, which was located on Front Street and across from King's. And I worked the weekends during the regular school year, and then during the summers I worked throughout the week. But anyway, at that time we were extremely poor, and we were preparing for the prom, my first prom. And we didn't have the money for a suit. And so Mr. Morris came in and he said, Ronnie, your dad told me that you're getting ready to go to the prom. He said, do you have a suit? And I said, no, sir, I do not. He said, I tell you what, let me call Ed Camps. And Ed Camps was located on Oak Street. So he called Mr. Camps and said, hey, I'm sending Ronnie Williams down there, let him have a suit, and arranged for him to pay that out weekly. So I went down and they were very nice to me. I got the suit. It was a royal blue suit. I'll never forget it. It was light blue. It was pretty, one of my first suits. Anyway, I paid $5 a week on that suit until I paid it off. After I paid off the suit, never missed a payment, I just assumed that I had established a little bit of credit and that I could go back and buy something else. And so I went back to Ed Camps after paying off the suit, and I wanted to get something else. And of course, Mr. Camp made it clear to me that wasn't going to happen. He said, the only reason I let you have that suit was because C.C. Morris told me to. And so you can't get any other clothes here. So that was one of those wake-up calls for me as a young black man, a young black boy rather, growing up in the area.
So let's go to May 5th, 1960. That was a day that we talked about that kind of went from bad to worse for your family. So tell everybody what was going on that day in the Pine Street community, and what happened that evening to you personally, and then we'll kind of move on from there.
So on May 5th, 1960, there were two high school proms that were underway. There was a Pine Street prom, and there was the Conway County Training School prom. Both all black high schools having their prom on the same night. And of course, the high school proms back then, especially for black communities, was an event. Not only did the high school students attend the prom, alums of the high school would go back and attend the prom as well. It was a big deal. It was a thing that everybody showed up for in the spring. So on that night, Conway County Training School was having its prom, and on that same night, there were warnings in the area. There were tornado warnings for the area. So the high school prom was canceled somewhere about 10:30, 10:45. And shortly after that prom was canceled, a tornado hit Menifee and destroyed our home, the school. The only thing that's left in Menifee from 1960 is the gymnasium. So if you drive through Menifee, that's what they call the WPA building. It was built with federal funds back in the 50s. And so that was the only thing that stood from the tornado. But our home was destroyed. There were 8 of us in the home. I was injured that night severely. I have a scar here. I needed about 36 inches to close that injury. And we were taken to Morrilton by a neighbor. that drove us to the Morton Hospital, and that is where I was held overnight until the next morning.
And so I'll kind of push the story forward. On the 6th of May, your family finds out you were 7. Your eldest brother Marvin was how old?
Marvin would have been 21 in July. He was 20.
Marvin was 20, almost 21, and they find out on May 6th that Marvin died. And that's 1960. And, you know, as we talked through this, your childhood, your early adult life, college, you meet Connie, you get married, the entirety of your early life, you knew that Marvin died, but that's all you knew. You said that you remember hearing something about a blood clot, but that's all you knew. You move on, you work for the State Department of Education, is that right? 1984. It's June 1984. You came home to Menifee and something was different on that particular day in June regarding your dad. So we've moved forward 24 years, so let's talk about that day and what happened.
In June 1984, it was not unusual for me to drive by my parents' home after arriving home from work. That was a habit. I did it in the morning, I did it in the evening. I was the youngest of 8 children born to Johnny and D.B. Williams, so it was pretty much of a routine for me. So on that evening, and before I tell what happened on that evening, my dad was known for his crops. He called it a truck patch. That's what it was called at that time. But he was known for raising produce, and nothing would take him out of the garden. I mean, you just couldn't get him out of the garden until sunset, or unless he's, as Tim said, unless he's cutting hair on the weekends. But on that evening, when I drove in to the house, my dad dropped everything that he had in the garden, and he came to the house to meet me. And he came over and he said, "Son, I want you to look at something. I received a letter from somebody that said that they saw what happened to Marvin." And so I took the letter and I started to read the letter. The letter was written by Charles Hackney. He was a white guy who we later learned that was incarcerated in the jail with my brother, but he was white. He sent the letter, and I still have a copy of that letter, by the way, and the letter is in the book. But in essence, what he says is, "I can't live with myself. You need to know what happened to your son." And in that letter, he describes what he saw and what he heard. And it was at that point that we knew Marvin was murdered. It wasn't an accident. We heard about a blood clot and him tripping, but he was murdered.
So obviously your world changed like that. And you started investigating what had happened 24 years before, and you hit some roadblocks.
Absolutely. So after reading the letter, I needed more information. So one of the things I knew is that if someone dies in a place and the death is a mysterious death, there has to be a death certificate. So I went to the Magnet Funeral Home to get a copy of the death certificate. And of course, I was given a little bit of the runaround at that point. They told me they did not have that on file, and I knew that was not correct. That has to be on file. They said they had sent that document over to then Judge Harchie. I went over to Judge Harchie's office and I followed up on that, and I said, "Judge Harchie, I need a copy of my brother's death certificate. I was told by McNutt Funeral Home that you have that in your possession." Of course, he was not happy with me. He was rude and said, "I don't have it." Anyway, I go back to McNutt Funeral Home, and mysteriously, that preliminary report surfaced. So I got a copy of that, and that death certificate was a one-page preliminary findings that had a lot of medical jargon that I did not understand. But we were able to get the preliminary report at that time.
So one thing that we didn't mention is when you got the letter, Mike Masterson, who was then a reporter for the Arkansas Democrat, also got a letter. So there was some investigating going on, and as we continue the story, as you continue to investigate this, there was some attention that was being given, including 2020. Geraldo Rivera was very interested in this, was going to come to Conway and cover it, and Ronnie, because of the guy he is and representing his family, really wanted then Governor Clinton to help him with this. And so I love this part of the story. So I want you to tell them how you got Governor Clinton's attention.
So in 1984, there was a lot of coverage. For any of you that have been, who lived in the area, it was, if not daily, it was weekly. It was constant. The community was being inundated with reports. And we needed to get, we needed the governor's support. We needed to get the case reopened. It was obvious that that Marvin's death wasn't an accident. He was murdered. And so I went to the governor's office and I spoke with Rodney Slater. Many of you know Rodney Slater, former Secretary of Transportation, I believe, for President Clinton. And of course, Rodney gave me the runaround as well. He said, oh, you know, this is a 25-year-old case. The governor doesn't get involved in this kind of stuff, and it's just too old of a case, and you need to let it rest. And of course, I wasn't going to let it rest, and I went back to my office. It's on Capitol, on the Capitol Mall, the Arch Ford building. And I called Barbara Roberts, who was later became the state director of the library system in Arkansas. And I called him and I said, look, I need 5 minutes with the governor. I need to talk with the governor because, you know, we need his involvement. And he said, well, the governor's just not going to get involved. And so being somewhat young and dumb and not knowing that I could have lost my job, I said, look, 2020 is coming to the state of Arkansas to cover this case. And when they interview our family, I will tell them that the governor refused to talk with us. And within 5 minutes, I get a call from the governor's administrative assistant and said the governor can see you now. And so I walked back up the hill and I went in and talked with the governor. And governor was not happy with me. He was red-faced. And the first thing he said was, how long have you known about this case? So anyway, I spent the next 45 minutes to an hour giving him what we knew and how we came about learning the circumstances surrounding Marvin's death. And at the end of that conversation, Governor Clinton was very supportive and committed his personal support as well as that of the state.
And so from that, you really have a lifelong friendship with him because of what he did. So again, to kind of push the story forward, and we're not going to give you all of it because you have to buy the book. You know, you have to buy the book when it comes out. So that was June of '84 when you received the letter. By January of '85, they had reopened the case. You went through some very hard things, including exhuming the body of your brother and a complete reinvestigation. There was a trial, and you did not get a conviction from the trial. So I want to talk about how you felt about this place, how you felt about Conway, and what you wanted to do.
That's a tough question. I was not in a good place in 1985. I don't mind telling you that. We had the science and we had eyewitnesses. Not only the person who was incarcerated, but also other individuals who drove by who saw what happened to my brother. The science spoke loud and clear. And I was naive. In 1985, I assumed that people do the right thing, that people, given the facts, that they do the right thing. And we all know that's perfect world, that's not real world. Real world, it just doesn't come that easy. So those individuals were acquitted, and I was not in a good place. And I don't mind telling you, and my wife can attest to this, is I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to hurt some people. I needed to get back. After learning the fact that my brother was bludgeoned to death for no, just because you can do it and you could get away with it, I was not in a good place. So I was looking for a way to get back. And I can tell you right now, my parents, especially my mother, saved my life, literally. I would not be where I am today had she not pulled me in and helped me process what was happening. I don't know how they did it. My parents had to have known in 1960 that something was, but they did not talk about it. They did not, we did not talk about it all of those years. We just didn't talk about it. And so, but anyway, they were acquitted, and I was looking for a way to pay those individuals back. Not only for those that were directly involved with my brother's death, but also those that helped to cover up the facts surrounding his death. So it was, there was conspiracy in the truest sense of the word.
So how did you feel about this place, about Conway?
I was not happy with Conway. I don't, at that point, I needed to get away. I was not happy with Conway at all. And we needed space. I needed to get away. I didn't like Conway. In fact, I despised Conway at that point. I wanted nothing to do with Conway. And the only way we could get through that was that I was working in Little Rock. And so I was not happy with Conway at that point.
And so as you talk about your book, over time, God changed your heart. You feel very different about this place now than you did then. So talk about how that transformation happened and what that's been like for you to come back to a better place about this place.
God has a way of taking you the long way around. It's amazing what he does. I wanted out, and every opportunity that I was given to get out, it brought me right back to this place. I mean, my wife could tell I was applying for jobs out of state. I needed to get away. I was done with Central Arkansas. My dad was going through a health crisis, but that didn't keep me. I was like, hey, Mother and Daddy, I'm going to move you guys somewhere close to us, but I've got to get away. But that changed. And, God has a way of allowing you to prosper in places that you never dreamed that you would. He does. And I am thankful that Conway is not the place that it once was. And we all know that, there are communities all over the country that go through a transformation. Conway is not that same place, thank God. But I've had some wonderful experiences here, and I have relationships in this community that I have developed, and I am I'm a better person because of many of you that are in this room today. And so we're thankful that Conway has made that, is no longer that place that it once was.
So to end, and we talked about this last week when we were sort of going over how we were going to do this. 2 questions for you. We are in very challenging times, obviously, a lot of unrest. Your story is so pertinent to what we're going through as a country today. So my first question is, what is your advice to people of color? And then my second question is, what is your advice to those of us who are white?
Those are two good questions, Brad. Thank you. I think to my black brothers and sisters, you know, I think we have to take ownership for that which we are responsible. I mean, we have to do that. We have to be intentional about our centers of influence and what's happening within those circles of influence. I think we have to take a deep dive into the relationship building. We really do. And I mean, many of us can say, well, you know, this is, you know, we didn't develop systemic racism. That you know, we're dealing with the aftermaths, and even today, we're still dealing with systemic racism. It's alive and well. But I would say to you is that we have to reach across the aisle and develop those relationships. And we are, and we have, but we have to continue to do it, especially now. To my white brothers and sisters, well, can I do it broadly first?
Do whatever you
In terms of the community, I think we have to examine policing in America. We've got to examine the practices and the behavior of police. And let me just say this on the front. Even though my brother was murdered by police officers, no doubt about it, the vast majority of our police officers are decent human beings. But then there are those who are racist. And we see that. We've seen it enough. I could go through the list. And it's those individuals that we've got to get out of the system. So that those policies and practices and behaviors have to be examined. If this was happening to a different demographic, you know, we would have commissions and we'd have boards, we'd have studies, we'd have all kinds of resources being poured into that. But we've got to do that. We've got to be intentional about how we handle this. And we have to have, to both my black brothers and sisters and my white brothers and sisters, we have to have those difficult conversations. We do. I appreciate the fact after the George Floyd death, unfortunate death that we saw played out on national television, you know, Brad Lacey was one of the first to text me. I'm thinking about you, brother. I love you. Lindsey Henderson, I could go down through the list. Hey, I'm thinking about you. Those are the kinds of things we have to do. We have to have those honest conversations. It is okay to sit down with someone who doesn't look like you and say, you know, talk to me about Black Lives Matter. Why is that such a movement? I mean, if you come from a different place and you've not been profiled, you've not been stopped for nothing other than because of the color of your skin, I mean, you may not be able to identify it, but you should be able to empathize with that. And so having those very difficult conversations is important. You know, I'm reminded I find hope, rather, in a conversation that the Apostle Paul had with the church at Corinth. He sent them a letter. They were dealing with, you know, political unrest, social unrest, and he sent them a letter. He said, you know, when I was a child, I thought as a child. I acted as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. And then he said, but these three, faith, hope, and love. And the most important of these is love. We have to examine our faith. If you're a person of faith, if you were not moved by what you saw with George Floyd, you need to check your faith. Or if you were not moved by the 2 white police officers who were gunned down in the West Coast, who had little kids just sitting in their cruiser doing nothing, and someone came up and shot them. If you were not moved by that, you need to examine your faith. Those 3 things nobody can take from me: my faith, my hope, and the love that I have for myself, my family, and for all of you. And so we have to examine our faith. We have to embrace our hope, but then we got to walk, talk, and act in love. We got to do that together. I believe now is the time for us to get this right. We can't pass this to the next generation. We can't. Now is the time. We've seen too much death. And let me just say this about racism sells. You can play it and you can stoke it and it sells in certain places. But I believe that we can fix this. And I'm so thankful that we're in a community, that I work in a community that is growing, that's progressive, that sees value in people from every walk of life. Conway is a phenomenal place today. And I think we're blessed to be a part of this community. So I would just think those are the kinds of things that I think we have to do. I'm sorry to ramble a little bit back.
Good. So, yeah. Well, you know, as I've told you before as we close here tonight, there are so many of us in this room and in this town that are very thankful that God changed your heart about this place.
Me too.
You know, you have invested in the lives of so many people, and I can tell you that your influence and your fingerprints are all over our organization, and we look and behave differently as an organization because of your influence, and that is for the better. And the story that you told, I'll never forget. You were eating lunch with TJ and I at Mike's place, and you told this whole story to us about your brother, and I mean, it blows you away, to think that someone you know and you love went through something like that, and you've gone years and didn't know that. I mean, you never told us that. So I'm glad that we were able to share that with some other people, and we're looking forward to the book. So any idea about when that's going to come out and we can actually buy it?
We hope 60 days.
60 days. Yes. All right. And so we'll let everybody know. We'll have a book signing at the chamber, and it'll be a good day. So thank you guys for coming out again. Thanks to all our sponsors and to our award winners. I know for those of you that have won awards tonight, we'd like to get some legitimate pictures of you in front of the backdrop. So if you'll just kind of stick around, we'll do that. And you guys have a great evening. Thank you.